Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Can we all rise, please? We will rise and sing the national anthem of Turkey. You may be seated now. Thank you. We welcome you all to the joint opening ceremony of the 22nd General Assembly and the Council of Delegates of the International Red Cross and Red Crescent Movement. This gathering brings together a humanitarian family comprised of 190 national societies, the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, and the International Committee of the Red Cross, as well as invited guests and observers. It's a great privilege for me to introduce Head of Prime Ministry Disaster and Emergency Management Authority, Dr. Mehmet Güllüoğlu. Thank you for coming, sir. Not yet. I'm going to invite you. I also feel honored to welcome the government authorities of Turkey, the President of the Turkish Red Crescent, Dr. Kerem Kınık, the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, Mr. Tadateru Konoe, the International Committee of the Red Cross, Mr. Peter Maurer, the Chairman of the Standing Commission, Mr. George Weber, and over 900 Red Cross and Red Crescent delegates who traveled all over the world to meet in Antalya, Turkey. To set the context, we would like to inaugurate our 2017 statutory meetings with a video of our movement. Let's all watch it. We are the power of humanity. Let us now all reminded what the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement stands for by the reading of the fundamental principles by representatives from different national societies. I cannot hear yet.
İnsanlık, savaş alanında yaralılara ayrım gözetmeksizin yardım etme isteğinden doğan Kızılaç Kızılay Hareketi, her nerede olursa olsun insan ızdırabını ulusal ve uluslararası kapasitesi dahilinde önlemek ve dindirmek için çabalar. Amacı insan hayatının, sağlığının korunması ve insanlık onuruna saygı duyulmasının sağlanmasıdır. Bütün insanlar arasında karşılıklı anlayışı, dostluğu, işbirliğini ve kalıcı barışı destekler.
ألو. عدم التحيز لا تميز الحركة الدولية للصليب الأحمر والهلال الأحمر بين القوميات أو الأجناس أو الطبقات أو الأديان أو العقائد السياسية، فهي لا تهدف إلا إلى إزالة معاناة الإنسان وتعطى الأولية للحالات التي تتطلب عملاً عاجلاً.
Neutralidad. Con el fin de conservar la confianza de todos, el movimiento se abstiene de tomar parte en las hostilidades. En las hostilidades en todo tiempo, en las controversias de orden político, racial, religioso o ideológico.
Indépendance. Les mouvements est indépendants, auxiliaires des pouvoirs publics dans leurs activités humanitaires et soumises aux lois qui régissent leurs pays respectifs. Les sociétés nationales doivent pourtant conserver une autonomie qui leur permette d'agir toujours selon les principes du mouvement.
Hello. 志愿服务，国际红十字与红新月运动是志愿救济运动，绝不期望以任何方式得到好处。
Unity. There can be only one Red Cross or Red Crescent society in any one country. It must be open to all. It must carry on its humanitarian work throughout its territory.
Универсальность. Движение является всемирным. Все национальные общества пользуются равными правами и обязаны оказывать поддержку и помощь друг другу.
Thank you to all individuals reading the fundamental principles of the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement. Now I would like to invite all of you to lean back in your chairs and be carried away by the special Welcome to Turkey performance. We are going to watch the story of Red.
absence, existence, strength, power, all started to form in our universe, one by one, slowly, and with no haste, and with an admiring excellence. First atoms, and then stars, planets, and life. Mankind was right in the center of this vast universe. He could not run as fast as a cheetah. Maybe he could not fly as high as an eagle or swim as fast as a dolphin, but continued to learn each passing day. One day, he was dreaming of flying like a bird and swimming faster than dolphins. On the next, he was searching for formulas, handing down what he has learned to next generations, and continued to progress every passing day. Year and century, he was facing challenges. He gave up everything but dreaming, in other words, breathing. But our dreams are sometimes caged in deep corners of our mind. They wait in the furthest corner, in chains, for the day when they will be revealed. And here, all heartbeats, hopes are dashed, light is replaced with darkness. Some of us do not see, hear, and feel this darkness. Hearts are black, insensitive, and motionless. They leave randomly, and they expect us to live like them. Then suddenly, a heartbeat rises from the darkness. And then comes the breath, the common ground of us all, the common denominator of life, and the infinity overhead, which carries this emotion to the deepest parts of our body with this breath. Dreams brought us to light. Dreams make us progress. Dreams push us to achieve the impossible. What if there is no unity? What if the hearts beat for the same goal? What if the humanity works with discipline? Would dreams be realized? We did not see races, colors, and origins. We served humanity. We did not see the fair, unfair, right and wrong. We worked only to help. We did not see flood, earthquake, and war. We focused on eliminating difficulties. We worked for the red. worked for humanity's strength. We saved more. Because life means saving. As we said, dream, hope, and take action. Work for a new world and a bright future. Work continuously and relentlessly. In fact, dreaming is our strength. In fact, taking action and realizing is our strength. But our real strength is saving. And transfer what we've saved. Protecting to transfer. Treasuring what we have created diligently, carefully, and with an endless love to protect. Breath, dream. Breath, life. Protection, hope, and future. If you're objective, there is objectivity in the world. If you work for human rights, there are happy people on all continents. If you think independently and fight for independence, there are people who think freely and live freely. If you can unite regardless of color, race, and gender, the borders are removed in the world. The future is with you. The future is with us. The future is in our dreams. An endless red breath.
Power of humanity. We are stronger together. I hope you enjoyed it, this special program. How did you like it, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you. With the closing of the social elements of the opening, I wish now to proceed to official speeches and would like to introduce our first speaker, the president of the Turkish Red Crescent Society, Dr. Kerem Kınık, to deliver his speech.
Ladies and gentlemen, before continuing with this opening ceremony, I would like to ask to have a moment to pay tribute to the memory of so many volunteers and staff of Red Cross and Red Crescent who, since our last meeting in Geneva in December 2015, lost their lives in the line of duty as a consequence of accidents or violence. The last 2 years have been markedly tragic, with more than 75 Red Cross or Red Crescent workers. Unfortunately, additionally, one more our colleagues from the ICRC in the Central African Republic last Saturday we lost, who died in the service of humanity and the ideals of our movement. Among them, a large majority were the victims of armed violence, so often even the direct targets of this violence. Our thoughts are also with those who have been injured or have gone missing under such difficult circumstances. On behalf of us all, I want to express my deep sadness, my sympathy, and my solidarity to the families and communities of the Red Cross and Red Crescent struck by these painful losses. As we did at the 32nd International Conference, I also wish to reiterate our deep concern about persisting attacks, threats, and obstructions that affect our humanitarian and healthcare professionals and facilities in the world. These attacks make our mission of relief and protection of the wounded, sick, and vulnerable populations more perilous. We are not a target. In memory of our colleagues and friends who lost their lives in the service of the Red Cross and Red Crescent over the past 2 years, I ask that we all rise to observe a moment of silence. May God bless them all. I thank you. Dear Mr. President Tadateru Kone, President of International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, dear Mr. Peter Maurer, President of the ICRC, the President of AFAD from the Prime Ministry, dear honorable representatives of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, distinguished guests, welcome to Antalya, to this beautiful city. We are extremely proud of and honored to be able to host this year statutory meetings of the International Red Cross and Red Crescent Movement, which is the world's largest humanitarian network established to mitigate the human suffering. Our event coincides with a period of history during which humanitarian crises stemming from wars and conflicts are most strongly felt since the Second World War. This makes our gathering even more important. At this meeting, we will be seeking solutions together for global humanitarian crisis. We will also strive for enhancement of our movement's impact on a global scale. Our movement needs to be stronger since its fundamental principles offer a better world for humanity. Our movement's principles revoke the existing world order in which being powerful overwhelms being right, and national interests outplay the pressing needs and interests of humanity. We desire such a movement that values human dignity regardless of nationality, religion, class, or political thought. We envision a movement that has earned the trust of everyone while ensuring that it does not take sides in any political, religious, or ideological disputes or conflicts. Dear guests, our Red Movement includes champions of humanitarian volunteerism for impoverished people who want to hope for a better future. We deliver our services and benevolences for humanitarian purposes by executing several operations across the world. It is our duty to touch people's lives, to change their misfortune, to ease humanity's pain, to mitigate sufferings, and to deliver humanitarian aid. We all acknowledge that power of humanity is the strongest remedy for a better world. The fact that our movement can have more say at global level means that the human conscience, which has been silent for a long time, could now take the floor again. We, members of the Red family, all believe that the principles of our movement can overcome this pacifism and silence. Instead, those in need, living under troublesome and disastrous circumstances, face further activism and volunteerism from us more than ever before. For this reason, I believe that the decision taken by national societies during our statutory meetings will have global repercussion. As the Red Crescent Society of Turkey, we are very proud to host such critical meetings as we are preparing to celebrate our 115th anniversary very soon. I hope that some essential decisions will be made and announced in Antalya to meet the urgent needs of humanity. Humanity and those needy ones who wait for our help have high expectations from us, from the Red Movement. Having said that, I wish once again that our statutory meetings will host fruitful discussions and have good outcomes for humanitarian aid sector and hence the entire humanity. I would like to thank IFRC, ICRC and the Turkish Red Crescent staff as well as our volunteers for your devotion, commitment and contribution to the Red principles and the realization of our statutory meetings. I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kınık. And now I would like to invite our second speaker, the President of the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, Mr. Tadateru Konoe, with a big applause.
Dr. Kinnick, President of Turkish Red Crescent Society, Dr. Maura, President of the International Committee of the Red Cross, Mr. Weber, the Chairman of the Standing Commission, our Turkish hosts and friends, distinguished guests from across the Red Cross Red Crescent movement, in the International Committee of the Red Cross, in the 190 national societies, and in the International Federation of Red Cross Red Crescent Societies, which serves them all. Thank you for this platform to address you today. Ladies and gentlemen, this morning my message for you is about the merits and demerits of age and the primacy of moving with the times. It comes from someone who has been with the Red Cross Red Crescent movement for over 50 years, someone who cherishes this organization and whose first principle is the mother of all principles, the principle of humanity. It comes from someone who takes an overwhelming pride in the things which define the Red Cross, Red Crescent, the power of its brand, the immutability of its fundamental principles, the legacy of its work over 100 years of the League and the Federation, and even more years of the International Committee and some of the individual national societies. All these things stand for everything we are, and all that we must be as a federation, as a movement, as we shape up for the 21st century. I'm so proud of so many of the responses that have happened on my watch. Not just headline makers, Haiti, Fukushima, Ebola, Zika, Syria, the France, the hurricanes, the phenomenal support to migrants in so many parts of the world, but the daily painstaking work in communities all over the world. And yet, of course, there is a but. Because these wonderful things may not mean much if we do not adapt to a fast-changing world and the treats which it brings not just those whom we serve, but to us as well. There's a romantic view of the Red Cross Red Crescent with which I identify. It is a precious thing, but it is not in itself enough. I will talk a little bit about each of those challenges and threats, but in a sentence, they are first our unity, second our strength in depth at the level of national societies, third the strength and the size of our volunteer base, fourth the way we manage the resources entrusted to us, and fifth the quality and quantity of the work which we do before, not only when and not only after disaster strikes. Dear friends, these are truly critical issues. Our magnificent federation, which touched the lives of 160 million vulnerable people last year, must address these issues as it starts to map its future for the next decade with Strategy 2030 and more. And I'm sure that President Maura will support me in saying that they apply across our movement. So first, our unity. It has often been said that the millions of needy people we serve make no distinction between any other component parts of the movement, and what each of them does or doesn't do in respect of conflict or disaster. They see solely as a Red Cross, Red Crescent. It's there, often embedded in their own communities, to help them. A particular reality, of course, is that man-made and natural disaster cannot always be separated, and indeed that we cannot be separated. That is why I welcome the good cooperation that we do have, especially the joint appeals which we have launched in Nepal, Haiti, Nigeria, Yemen, Somalia, Myanmar, as well as our joint humanitarian diplomacy in areas such as nuclear weapons and migration. It's why I welcome the way we have worked together on this morning, on the RC2 forum and on the Council of Delegates, in which we will conduct our business on Friday and Saturday. We are stronger when we work together. Second, I raise the issue of our strengths in depth at the level of our national societies. Many national societies are strong, and as many, first and foremost, by their own estimation, are less so. Some are well-funded, some are seriously underfunded, some have of a superb capacity, others don't reach the same levels. Some are internationally active and yet domestically sluggish. It is perfectly natural that not all national societies perform at the same levels, but it is categorically imperative that we all help each other and that the Federation enables and supports a process which belongs to the societies themselves. National society capacity building is our first priority. Again, it is of the greatest importance that we collectively pursue this task. We cannot make the boast of having a national presence across the world if it does not bear scrutiny. We are only strong if all are strong. Third, I refer to the strength and the size of our volunteer base. We always debate its size. We say it's up to 17 million. There's a case for it being higher if we include every possible volunteer in every situation. And there is a case for it being lower if we examine the diminishing numbers of volunteers and the unevenness of their spread. Dear colleagues, we are in danger of losing our precious lifeblood. Volunteers define us, and we must hold the side in their numbers. We know, too, that our challenge goes beyond mere numbers. We must do a better job of nurturing the commitment of volunteers. We must support them in their rights and responsibilities, which are in the Volunteer Charter, which is due for debate in the Federation's General Assembly. And what is more, dear friends, we must protect them. Far too many of them, more than 30 already this year, have given their lives in the service of humanity. Those people and their loved ones are always in our hearts. We call again for the protection of humanitarian workers and full respect for international humanitarian law. Let's all repeat the hashtag that we are not a target. Of course, I highlight the issue of the integrity with which we manage the resources entrusted to us. We are funded primarily by individual citizens who believe in us and by governments who believe in us. Some governments have arrangements whereby whatever monies the people raise, the government matches it. It is an extraordinary affirmation of trust and good intent. We must all, every one of us, strive to protect our precious resources and ensure that every penny, every cent, and every gift goes to those who need it most. We must stand firm as we commit every one of us to 100% integrity. At the core of our brand and our acceptability in the role acknowledged by the World Humanitarian Summit last year as champion of localization is our integrity. The trust is absolutely crucial. And fifth and finally, I'd like to raise the quality and the quantity of the work which we do before, not only when and not only after disaster strikes. Ladies and gentlemen, in the last few years, we have built in disaster preparedness as at least a 10% component of every emergency appeal we have launched. Disaster preparedness may sound like an old and perhaps tired refrain, but the reason we repeat it is that even though we do markedly more of it than we did before, there is still much more to do. The fact is that we know most of the answers to famine, to disease, to flood, to earthquake, to the movement of people, and yet we're still not always ready for disaster. And too often the answers are not put into effect. We cannot wait until our next international conference in 2 years' time to resolve this. It must be done now. I shall refer to some of these points this afternoon when I give my address on the state of the International Federation. For the moment, I'm simply saying that all the great things that have happened so far will count for little unless a younger generation embraces the International Red Cross Red Crescent movement and makes it fit for the future. Hundreds of millions of our fellow human beings need us. Let us be all that we possibly can be for their sake, for our sake, and for the power of humanity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Konoe. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite our third speaker to the stage. The President of the International Red Committee of the Red Cross, Mr. Peter Maurer, to deliver his speech with a big applause. Hello, sir.
President Kinnock, President Konoe, colleagues and friends, welcome from my side as well to the statutory meetings of the International Red Cross and Red Crescent movement at a critical moment for us to come together and to shape the future of humanitarian action. On behalf of the ICRC, I would like to thank the Turkish Red Crescent for hosting us today and during the week. Our world is characterized by long and deadly wars and increasingly severe, more frequent natural disasters. We see famine and disease ravage communities, and entrenched poverty spiral into hopelessness. We see ordinary men, women, and children displaced in huge numbers, suffering needlessly. We also see the movement step up, and our dedicated staff and volunteers risked their own safety to bring aid to those in need. I have recently visited many of the major conflict theaters and centers of violence around the world, including in Syria, South Sudan, Yemen, Myanmar, and Ukraine. I have met with many national societies, and I have seen the tremendous contributions to humanity that the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement makes. There is so much to be proud of in the principled action of the movement, and there is so much more that we can achieve. In a world where faith in institutions is rapidly evaporating, great trust is placed in our hands, in the symbol of the Red Cross and Red Crescent, and in a neutral, impartial, and independent humanitarian action that brings them to life. We can never forget that the trust given to us is our license to operate. Trust means we can cross the front lines and reach affected communities. It means we can act as neutral intermediary to broker aid deliveries. It means faith that the donor dollar will be wisely used, and it means that we do everything to ensure the integrity of our institutions. Integrity needs skills and capacities, leadership, political will, strong ethics, mechanisms and institutions, and robust oversight. We will have to work fast and effectively on all these fronts within our movement. The movement has an incredible capacity to be a powerful force in the world, to save lives, to change lives. But its potential is drastically untapped. It is, as others have described, a sleeping giant. Today, I set a challenge for the movement. It's time to awaken the giant. The crisis of the world demands this of us. The people of the world demand this of us. We must examine what is holding the movement back, be it competition, unproductive positioning, false ambitions for leadership and control when real capacities are lacking, weak coordination, unexplored complementarities, or political pressure from external authorities. Together, we must acknowledge where we are falling short. We must hold each part of the movement to our shared standards, help others up when they need it, and learn from what we are doing right. Millions around the world are depending on us. Every time we fail, every time we fall short, we fail them. We must mutually strengthen, not hinder each other, coordinate and cooperate in order to engage, not to prevent action. Self-review is not an easy work for an institution. It requires strength, facing up to difficulties, confronting evidence, and departing from abstract or wishful thinking. But it is a crucial process if we are to deliver on our promises. Dear colleagues, Henri Dunant's words remain as true today as they have ever been: to help without asking whom. The guiding light illuminating all that we do must be based on people's needs. Throughout our operations in dangerous and unstable places, we see the neutral, independent, and impartial humanitarian action has the best chance to reach those most in need. It is also a tried and tested formula to prevent humanitarian action becoming part of a larger and more controversial political agenda. But in many places across the world, the space for such impartial humanitarian action is under threat. Human dignity is disregarded. The applicability of the law is questioned. Humanitarian aid is politicized and subject to motives other than needs-based humanitarian imperatives. Too often, we see an over-politicization of humanitarian action and a lack of political support for neutral and impartial humanitarianism. Both states and non-state armed groups hold civilian populations and humanitarian actors to ransom in order to achieve their goals. But let me be clear. Humanitarian organizations do not exist to endorse, to legitimize, to help authorities further their political objectives. National societies are auxiliaries to states to further humanitarian responses according to principles. The ICRC is here to help states live up to the obligations they have signed, not to help them circumnavigate them. These trends have been accompanied by a major shift in how the law and protection work is perceived today. International humanitarian law does not rely on reciprocity and applies even if an opponent fails to comply with the law, as it defines the inviolable nature of the principle of humanity. However, it is precisely this principle of non-reciprocity that is now being questioned in many places and by many belligerents. The Geneva Conventions are not up for negotiations. They reflect in normative language the tested practice of societies over time and space. They are customary law. They must guide practical action for people and not degenerate into a tool for prolonged lawfare and accusations amongst states, amongst high contracting parties. We cannot afford to let ourselves be politicized or prevented from carrying out our humanitarian mandate. Humanitarian action is not a bargaining chip. At the ICRC and as the movement overall, in highly polarized situations, we are inevitably drawn into political debates as others attempt to use humanitarian action for their own purpose. It is frankly not straightforward, this situation. We know about the deep dilemmas we encounter when bringing the principles to life, but we must resist the pressure and find adequate safeguards to mitigate the risk. We need to be able to navigate between our principled approach and our pragmatic response. We need to support states in fulfilling their obligations and be advocates for victims. We must remain professional in a highly politicized environment. We need to make clear distinctions between compromise and false compromise. The threshold will always be the lasting benefit for victims in today's conflicts and natural disasters. Across the humanitarian ecosystem, we need to play to our strength. Humanitarian action needs all parts of the movement: local, regional, international. The scale and intractability of the crisis we face today requires both. Local responders who know their communities, who can mobilize quickly and who can remain long after the crisis has passed, and international responders with a network and legitimacy to connect with opposing parties in context and beyond, who can act and issue that many be too sensitive for local actors, who can support local actors, strengthen their capacity and act as reinsurers and brokers of neutral, impartial action in particularly volatile and fragile situations. We need to be able to respond to emergencies and to care for long-term needs in protracted crises. We must transcend artificial silos of state and international bureaucracies and put people in need at the center of our concerns and actions. Building on each other's strength must replace the mediocrity of the lowest common denominator. There is perhaps no better argument on the need for principled coordinated action than the global migration crisis. The scale and complexity of mixed migration flows across borders and within countries requires for the mobilization of the whole movement. Within a highly politicized environment, we have seen punitive policies introduced which have adversely affected people's lives and created even greater harm. Evidence and principles speak against such a direction. Colleagues and friends, the pressing question I believe we must answer are the following. How do we protect and increase the space for neutral, independent, and impartial humanitarian action, especially as national security policies and counterterrorism measures threaten to override humanitarian imperatives and co-opt humanitarian action? How do we reconcile the legitimate desire of states to lead the response to humanitarian crises affecting their populations with neutral, impartial, and independent humanitarian action? And how do we demonstrate to states the value and necessity to preserve the fundamental principles? How do we foster greater solidarity, complementarity, and stricter compliance with the fundamental principles and internal rules within the movement. How do we base principles in evidence and practice? And finally, how do we embrace the technological revolution, violence moving to the cyberspace, connectivity transforming our action and our organizations, in order to charter a way forward for our fundamental humanitarian experience? How do we weave deep past experience into a rapidly transforming environment today? These are difficult questions, but we will succeed if we adhere to our humanitarian agenda, if we remain strictly humanitarian in our thinking, principle-driven in our approach, as well as practical and close to people and their needs. As a movement, we must rise to the challenge, ask the difficult questions, and find the solutions. We must ensure our institutions live up to their promises. If we are to retain the trust placed in us, we have no choice but to start today to look for answers. As we search for solutions, we must always keep the people who seek our aid and protection at the heart of all our actions and concerns. We simply cannot fail them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maurer. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to invite our last speaker, Head of Prime Ministry, Disaster and Emergency Management Authority, Dr. Mehmet Güllüoğlu, with a big applause.
Günaydın. Sabah el-Khair. Buenos días. Good morning. Mr. Kınık, Mr. Kone, Mr. Maurer, Mr. Weber, distinguished guests from different countries, from different nation societies. It's really a pleasure and it's really a great honor to be in this room with some friends, with our colleagues from different nation societies. Welcome to Turkey and welcome to Antalya. I hope today and your days in Antalya in this week will be benefit for all humanity and for all this movement. Probably some of you or many of you may know me from my background in TRC. But my today presence is not because of the TRC. My best background on TRC, also the relation between TRC and the Turkish government. 3 months ago, I'm appointed as a new position as the head of disaster agency in Turkey. And as Turkey, also humanitarian affairs is one of the priority for us, is one of the main part of the humanitarian relations, international relations, and I'm proud to be part of it. Because our President, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, is also supporting us in this context. Thanks to him for this approach. For us, saving a life is saving all humanity. And about the movement, this movement is unique because of its some power. It is at the same time universal, at the same time it is global, and at the same time it has local reachable capacity. And the heroes are your volunteers, your staff, because you are on the field, and your power comes because of the field, your accessibility to the field. World needs to us, needs to you much more than before. Unfortunately, conflicts are happening and continuing every day, even in these modern eras. And the effects of disasters are getting worse. The cause of the Red Cross in 1860s are unfortunately still same, and it is still continuing. This movement should reposition, should refresh, should renew itself, and increase its capacity with organizational level, and increase its capacity with volunteers. This movement is a red pillar for humanity. I wish all the best and a successful week to all of you. Please take our greetings to your country, to your staff. I hope you will have a memorable stay in Turkey. Thank you very much. Gracias. Şükran kethiran. Merci. Teşekkür ediyorum. Sağ olun.
Thank you, Mr. Güloğlu. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank each of you for following us through the opening ceremony, and I wish you a fruitful and successful week in Antalya. You are now cordially invited to proceed to lunch, and you will resume the General Assembly session at 2 p.m. Bon appétit!